What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 2 of my Wonderkids series here in Football Manager 2018, and today we are of course taking a look at defenders. If you missed last episode, which was covering the goalkeeper Wonderkids in Football Manager 2018, do go check that out. I'll put a link to the playlist of this series down in the description. Of course, midfielders and attackers are upcoming, and as was the same with last episode, down in the description you can also download the shortlist, which I'm going to be going through today, and then there are instructions as well of how to load it into your own game. Anyway, as I mentioned, today we are going to be looking at defenders. There are 124 players here, some very good young players indeed, and well, I thought we'd just take a look through some of the best and some of the best value for money as well, because there are some real diamonds in the rough here. Of the 124 players featured, I think about half of them, their values, not necessarily the price you'll have to pay for them, but their values are £5 million or lower. So there are some bargains in here, and I'm sure you guys may even find players that I kind of glance over in this episode and don't talk that much about. Anyway, the best Wonderkid in terms of value is Kurt Zouma, obviously playing for Stoke, been injured for a little while in real life, left Chelsea to go to Stoke to get regular first team football, but still a fantastic player at 22 years old, certainly going to continue to improve. I don't know how easy he will be to pry away from Chelsea at the end of his loan in Football Manager this year, but nevertheless he is certainly a standout player. Of course, Joshua Kimmich had a fantastic start to the season in real life, playing right back for Bayern Munich. Of course, kind of Philipp Lahm's replacement, almost like Philipp Lahm's regen in a lot of ways. A very talented player, can of course play centre mid as well at 22 years old. Realistically, as with a lot of these early players that we go through, you're not going to be able to pry him away from Bayern Munich for cheap. But nevertheless, just a player worth keeping our tabs on, certainly. Hector Bellerin also features in this list, of course, 22 years old, the Spanish international. He has 20 pace and acceleration. It's literally off the charts here. It looks a little bit silly, his attributes polygon. We also have Jose Jimenez of Atletico. Looking at him, he will have a release clause in his contract. It is £58 million. Is it worth paying? I'll let you decide. But no, he's a very good kind of technical centre-back, certainly the Uruguayan one who is certainly worth keeping an eye on. Of course, a few players here who recently signed for the clubs that they now play for. Victor Lindelof, not the greatest start to his time at Manchester United, but you can see here a very good centre-back indeed. Same with Benjamin Mendy, who of course has a very long-term injury right now. I'm not sure on the exact length of it, but I know it's a while, so maybe a player who might become available from Man City, but yeah, very good fullback indeed. And at 22 years old, certainly a player who I could see, you know, falling out of favour with Man City, and maybe you could pick him up for cheap, as Man City have tended to do with players in Football Manager in recent years. Anyway, I'm sure there's plenty of players here that you recognise. Just scrolling through this list a little bit, you've got the likes of Regani, Romagnoli, of course, Davinson Sanchez, who recently signed for Tottenham in real life from Ajax. Was it Ajax? I want to say it was Ajax. I don't know why I doubted myself. Continuing on through this list, we start to kind of approach the realms of slightly more affordable players, perhaps. Antonio Barreca here of Torino, a very good player. You can pick him up for about 12 million. A good, well-rounded left-back. I wouldn't say he's standout in any one area, but in terms of value for money, in terms of a player who is still only 22 and with room to improve, he's a pretty nicely well-rounded kind of wing-back. Other players you've got here, Ben Chilwell of Leicester can turn into a really good player, although they are not going to let him go for cheap. Kenny Tete of Lyon, a very good player. I believe, again, another Ajax youngster you can see in real life, signed for £3.6 million. So not going to be an option first season, but certainly a player worth keeping an eye on. Jorge, I know that you can't get him for cheap, but he's been a fan of mine, or rather, I've been a fan of his. He may well have been a fan of mine, and I don't know, but ever since his Flamengo days where you could pick him up in Football Manager, he's been good. Of course, now breaking into Brazil's national team, playing for AS Monaco, he features here. Continuing to go through this, we have Mauricio Lemos of Las Palmas. You can see here he will have in his contract a release fee. It is £26 million. Perhaps a little bit too high for him, the Uruguayan, but still a very good centre-back with fairly professional personality as well. As we continue to scroll through this list, starting to get to, you know, even more affordable players here. There are a few players here as well that you can just approach to sign, which is nice. Rico Henry, a player who you will see in today's Liverpool FC Let's Play episode we pick up. He's a good player. You can get him for £6 million in the first kind of transfer window. He's only 19, fantastic physicals, a little bit of room to improve. I'm sure if you were to sign him and then load him back to Brentford, they're going to use him a lot. It's going to help his development. he is a very good player indeed. Anyway, to continue to kind of scroll through this list, you can see there's a fair few players. Keres Masangu here. Can't sign in first year, unfortunately, but the Belgium international... in fact, he's not... Why do I always say international? I don't know why I do that. I'm just lying to you, and I'm sorry. He's not an international. Maybe he could be one day with your managerial guidance. He's a very good player, can play centre-back and centre defensive mid naturally. So he's the kind of player that will appear on both the midfielder and defender shortlists, for people wondering, because he's natural in multiple positions. Anyway, as you get to the bottom of the list here, you know, a few real budget options. Players who perhaps don't have the best current ability, but if you can develop them well, they have fairly decent potential ability. Ben Forrest here of Birmingham doesn't look like a standout player, but he has got potential on certain saves, and it's going to be up to you to kind of make the most of that. If we reverse the kind of search and sort by age, you can see the kind of real youngsters here, some of the players you can approach to sign. I'll be honest and say that I'm not sure how many of these you can sign for Watford. Looking at it here, Mattis Lucere looks like he could potentially be an option, although you might have to give him some promises you wouldn't feel that all that comfortable giving him. But just looking at this guy, pretty good player, only 16 years old. Turns 17 fairly soon into a save if you're starting with a normal English start date. But good physicals, good defensive ability, has potential, would improve massively. I'm not sure exactly how much you'd wind up paying him in terms of compensation to pry him away from Lyon, but certainly a player worth considering. Axel Campiol plays at AC Milan here. I think you can approach to sign him. You can see I may or may not, behind the curtain here, pulling it back. I've tried to record this video once and it wasn't actually recording, which is a little bit embarrassing. But it is possible to sign him. I'm just not a very good negotiator, as we're discovering here. But yeah, certainly there are lots of players worth keeping an eye out on. Another player I pick up in my Liverpool series that you'll be seeing today is De Ligt. Good player, certainly. 17 years old, about £18 million I think I had to pay for him. Dutch international, turns 18 fairly soon into saves, but very good in the air, good determination. Very well-rounded player as well, good with the ball at his feet. But all in all, much like the goalkeeper kind of shortlist, there are some very good players in here. I'm sure there's players that I've missed that you can find out that are bargains if you do spot any, or you have players that you always go to that are cheap young players. Write them down in the comments. Let people know all about them. I'd like to hear about them too. Of course, if you have enjoyed this video, guys, please do leave a like. You can, of course, much like the goalkeeper shortlist, as I already mentioned, download this shortlist down in the description. You then can load it up into game following the instructions again in the description. If you want to follow this series playlist, there'll be a link to that down in the description too. And if you're watching in the distant future, there will be 4 episodes waiting for you. Of course, midfielders and attackers are going to be coming your way in the next day, guys. Keep an eye out for those. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe. And other than that, it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.